Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me in studio to discuss Superman, House of Brainiac is a pair of all-star guests. To my left, real-life Lobo cosplayer, Justin DeVoe. Welcome.
Dude, listen, this is a dream come true for me. I just want Bernie to slap me once before I leave. Just to fucking, yeah, dude, I'm stoked. When you told me about this, I haven't looked forward to something like this since like the birth of my son. So this is pretty awesome. This is pretty awesome.
That's a lot of pressure.
And to my right, all the way from All Yeah Comics, Skokie, Illinois.
Let's go.
Sweet, sweet Bernie Gersmeyer. Welcome.
What's up?
Dude, I just keep looking at you guys like, this is awesome.
Have we already put an explicit rating on this episode, just so we're clear?
I was going to ask, I feel like there might have been one F-bomb that slipped out in that little intro. Now, I'm going to adhere to movie ratings.
Only
so
one?
If we
PG-13?
keep it at that, then I'm not going to need to put up the explicit tag. Do you think we can do
we do
that?
it? I think we can do it.
Listen, man, how Lobo was treated, I'm going to try.
I'm going to save mine for that one section of
I'll
issue
throw a frack
5.
in like we're in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'll
Can we do
I'll just input.
fragging, freaking?
Fragging actually works because of what it is.
That's
It's
fine.
going to be hard, though. I'll do it for you, but it's going to be hard.
But this is really special to have even just one guest in studio, but to have both of you guys here. And you guys know we don't do a lot of multi-person, multi-guest recordings. Usually they're one-on-one.
Right.
So this is really fun. And I've had conversations recently with fellow podcasters where we've talked about trying to meet up one year at Superman Celebration or New York Comic Con or something like that. And I'm relatively optimistic we'll get there. But if and when that happens, it's one of those things I will really cherish it because it might be the only time that I'm in the same space as Tyler from Krypton Report or Zach from Always Hold On to Smallville. And you guys here, I mean, Bernie, I know you come to the East Coast typically once a year over the summer. And DeVoe, you're not far from here, but still, it's not like we get together. So this is a very rare and special thing. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
And I love your guests. Like I said, I love listening to Rich because he feels like a grandfather telling you a story. And I love that about him. Like, I will protect that guy. I love V-Ken. He's awesome. But if I had to do like a menage a nerd with anybody, it would be Bernie, man. Like when you're on, I get fired up about stuff. You have such an interesting way to talk about stuff without cursing, which to me, I'm like, I wish I can do that. But this is like the perfect trio for me. Like, I'm stoked about this.
All right, you mentioned
I
Rich
get to be
Roney.
Wonder Woman in the
Well, for this episode, I feel like considering the story we're talking about, clearly DeVoe, you're Lobo.
Yes.
Brainiac.
Wow. I mean, do I got to tattoo 3 orbs on my head?
Yes! Now you do.
That's great.
Dude, you should have came in just head to toe
Can
green.
you imagine?
I meant to say, Bernie, do you mind being Brainiac?
Do you mind? Not do you mind? Bernie, you're the only bald dude in the room.
He didn't finish it. He was like, Bernie.
Then he's like, oh, well.
And we knew.
And then it just came out Brainiac. But
Brainiac?
I got it even worse.
there we go, Brainiac. I like that. Right on.
Well, now that's what I'm calling you. Sweet Brainiac.
No, but speaking of fellow guest Rich Roney,
yeah, man.
I told him that we were going to be doing this, and DeVoe, you'll love this. He was like, "Oh, please tell Justin I had such a great conversation with him at Fat Moose,
like 2 years ago."
Cool.
I still think about that. He was such a nice dude, like genuinely nice. Like, not even like he's just acting it out. That's why, like, when he's on, it's like a calming experience.
That's cool.
So he wanted me to tell you, though, but that conversation you had with him at the Fat Moose Comics 40th anniversary party really made an impression.
Yeah.
He spoke about how you guys talked about Irredeemable, and
God,
he wanted me to share that.
I love Irredeemable.
That's in my top 5 books.
Rich also said, and I'm sorry, I don't know who Bernie is. And
Nice, right?
It's
awesome.
And it's one of those things where it's like, tell me you don't listen to the podcast without telling me you don't listen to the podcast. Because I was like, oh, Bernie's our most frequent guest.
He's like, I don't listen to the ones that I'm on. And
Bernie episodes get 1 star. One star out of 5.
Here's the thing with Rich, though. He doesn't listen on a regular basis, but
that's what I call it now.
But occasionally he will go on these like listening tears.
Yeah.
For example, recently we spoke and he's going back. He was like, oh, I listened to the Golden Age episode. We did like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He was telling me about it. I'm like, I really don't remember. It's been so long. I'm sure he'll get there eventually. The other thing too, in Rich's defense, is that he and I have these like weekly catch-up calls, and I always tell him what I'm recording.
Oh, nice.
So I think in a way, consciously or subconsciously, I feel like he feels like he's experiencing the podcast because I'm telling him about the episodes, even if he's not listening. But I was like, yeah, Bernie, you are the most frequent guest. You have that distinction.
I sometimes do the same thing where like I can't listen because I just
Same.
got so much stuff
Agreed.
going on that when I do though, it's like 5 in a row.
I'll binge it, yeah.
And that's when I'm texting you. I'm like, this, and you're like, dude, I did that like 6 months ago. I'm like, but I'm just listening to it now, man.
Well, and I've shared the podcast with people like recently, and now they're going back and listening to older ones. So I mean, that's the cool thing about having so many out there. They can kind of pick and choose. Like, oh yeah,
And
I appreciate that.
And it's not like you need one, like unless you're doing a series, you don't need one for the other one. You could kind of jump in whatever. Your burner, I think it's called, like the thing you do at the beginning of your show plays at the beginning of Not So Secret Dad's Business. To the point where I turned on one episode, I'm like, what did I just turn on? And I'm like, oh, we just played a whole thing right up front. So
that's cool.
We love pushing stuff like that. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So we're here to talk about Superman House of Brainiac, the recently concluded crossover event.
we can do it.
DeVoe has a lot he wants to get off his chest. A couple of things at the top. First of all, spoiler warning. The story concluded not too long ago. We'll be talking about it, so there will be spoilers. This was a 7-issue storyline that spanned 3 issues of Superman, 3 issues of Action Comics, a House of Brainiac special, all written by Joshua Williamson, art primarily by Rafa Sandoval. And then we also had 3 issues of Green Lantern and 3 issues of Power Girl that tied into it. Neither Bernie nor I
didn't read those,
got into the tie-in issues, though I know DeVoe did. I kind of skimmed through them. I have a general awareness of what
They
they're
were,
about.
in my opinion, the best part for a Lobo fan.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm dead serious. The best part. Otherwise, they were campy. Honestly, they weren't even. Honestly, they're not even tie-ins. They are barely tied in. The one with Green Lantern is a side. It's not even part of the comic. It's an after.
Yeah, it's a
story.
backup story.
Very,
where,
very, very short. Because otherwise, I read through the tie-in list. I'm like, no, man. Hal Jordan's going through something with the UA at that point. It's not even close.
What was the point of that then?
Because before House of Brainiac starts, they tell Guy Gardner he's got to go find Lobo, and he's got an unfinished score to settle.
Okay.
And he ends up finding a guy who looks like him because Joshua Williamson, with one stroke of his pen, changed 50% of Zarnian history.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about.
Every guy, every character has the same facial moco as Lobo. Everybody that's ever drawn for him has said it's a birthmark. They all have different ones. In Infanticide, all his kids have different ones. Ooh. So the fact that they all look exactly the same, that's why everyone was like, DeVoe, did you know that Lobo's bald now? I'm like, dope. And then I saw it, I'm like, no, it's just a guy who looks just like him with the same knee guards. It's General Chakal, a completely different dude.
So I don't want to make you have to sit here and stew in what you want to say about Lobo. So there are multiple fronts to discuss here, but let's start with Lobo. But let me just lay out the premise generally for anyone if you haven't read or you need a little refresher. But essentially here we have Brainiac sending an army of Zarnians and Brainiac drones. They descend upon Metropolis and take people with powers, including members of the super family, as well as adversaries turned recent allies like Metallo, Parasite, and Silver Band.
Shrink them all down.
The recently returned Lena Luthor as well, and Lex Luthor, who actually steps in front of a blast meant for Superman. So we have these folks aboard Brainiac's ship trying to break free. We have Superman tracking down Lobo and trying to make his way to Brainiac's ship. That's sort of another prong here of our story. And then, of course, the Brainiac of it all, where this unfolds over the course of the storyline. But essentially, for all that he has accumulated in terms of his knowledge, there is this hole in his knowledge that he's trying to rectify.
Which doesn't for him seem realistic.
And that's one of the things I want to talk about. But ultimately, his plan is to create this Brainiac queen who will feed on the energy of all of these people collected. So there's a lot more to unpack, but those are kind of the main aspects of this. And then I mentioned him a moment ago, but Lex Luthor, in the midst of all of this, building off of what Williamson had been doing in the main Superman title, there's this ongoing question about where Lex's loyalties truly lie, because it seems like he's turned over a new leaf. Then we have perhaps a turn where he's working with Brainiac, and then ultimately, I do think we get some clarity about what he's all about, and I was really quite pleased with all of that.
Well,
but
he
there's
says
the Lex
to
Luthor
Lena,
piece as well.
like he has a cool father moment where he's like, no, you got it. He's like, all the power and all the money in the world don't matter. Family comes first. And I was like, I'm trying to think of all his iterations, like when that's consistent. But it was cool that it happened. But at the same time, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I got to tell you guys, and I don't want to bury the lead here, I really had a lot of fun with this storyline.
Agreed.
Especially coming off of the first 12 issues of Williamson's Superman run, which I reread in advance of this.
Right.
And I think it pays off a lot of what was set up there with Parasite, with Silver Banshee, with Lex. And for a fan of the Triangle era comics, clearly Williamson is drawing from that period of time as well in a number of respects. I think you start to see Metropolis being built out in a way that we really haven't seen in quite a while. Honestly, I would read an entire miniseries, graphic novel of Perry White running for mayor. That to me is one of the most captivating aspects of all of this.
Honestly, just a Lois series now.
That House of Brainiac special with Bibbo, and it was like that was beautifully written.
Yeah.
Like, I love that section because like, what about the people? He's like, you are the people. Like, that was a really cool thing. That was one of the highlights of the series for me. Story, like, look, if you're a Superman fan, you're gonna love it. If you're a Lobo fan, you're gonna have questions.
All right. No, go ahead.
No, I also, the Lex and Lena of it all. Like, for me, I can't believe I was saying that, but like, that's my favorite part.
The highlight.
Of the whole arc. Like, the growth we see about Lena. I've got some complaints about how they introduce that. We'll get into that. But no, I can't believe I'm saying I enjoyed Lex more than I enjoyed Superman in this arc.
Yeah, I believe in Lex Luthor in this story. Yeah. And here's going back to the Triangle era. And we've talked about this on the show. And I know you know these stories, but the Lena thread was something that I thought was just gone. Yeah. I thought Infinite Crisis ate it up and we were never going to see it again. But Williamson pays off this thread from years and years ago, the end of Our Worlds at War, when Superman rescued Lena, returned her to her infant form, and gave her back to Lex after Lex had traded her to Brainiac 13 for future tech. Yeah. And we saw Lena in the Super books here and there a little bit after that, and then Infinite Crisis happened. She was never seen again, and we talked about this on the show. Like, I fully assumed she was wiped out by some continuity crisis.
And then she showed up in Chained, which was right before this. Yes. So I'm like, they're not just going to use her and drop her. There's got to be something after this, and they did. They pulled it together.
Which is frustrating because even when they brought her back, I don't think they did a good enough job explaining the backstory.
They didn't until that last issue, like the last run piece where like Lex, like they go into her memory through like the Brainiac machine, and it gives everything. And it's like, it was just like word vomit at that point. Like, oh, now I'm putting all those pieces together, but it needed that moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of tell as you're listening or as you're reading books now, you can kind of tell when writers grew up. Like, you can look at Joshua Williamson's age and you can go like, he's a fan of that mid to late 90s going into like the Jeff Loeb era, because there's a lot of hearkening to that vibe a lot. And he's doing it in the Energon universe. He's doing it in other things. He's doing well. He clearly loves that age of those properties.
Yeah, 1,000%. And so that all resonated with me. So I had a lot of fun with this. I do think, looking at it kind of as the next arc in his Superman run, I was really pleased with it. Yeah. But going into this, I didn't know what to expect because, Justin, you had shared your experience with me and I was like, So from your perspective as the Lobo fan, and honestly, here's the thing, like I'm genuinely curious because I don't have the attachment to the Lobo character. To be perfectly honest, whatever attachment I have really is because of you. Yeah. Like at this point now when Lobo shows up, DeVoe, I'm like, he's going to hate this.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like what you just said about he's going to hate this is true. And I talked to someone else about it. So I will get this out first because you told me I couldn't curse. So I'm going to try and do it.
You can do it
as nicely as possible. I talked to my friend James Azrael. He wrote the Fragpendium. I have it. Look at the size.
That's amazing.
Look at this thing.
Oh,
it is 40 years. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most Lobo memorabilia. Wow. He's got splash pages signed. He's got everything. I messaged him first. I said, hey, did you read House? And of course he does, because he's got 2,600 something pieces of just Lobo stuff. The guy from Guinness came and clocked it. He's in the Guinness book. He could be the world's biggest gatekeeper for Lobo information. Yeah. No one's ever, and he's the nicest dude on the planet. I asked him, I said, what did you think? And he came back and mirrored everything that a Lobo fan would have. Not a casual Lobo fan where it's like, oh, he just appeared in this. He's badass or whatever. He had the same issues that I did. Number one, we both said it. He said, I love this dude. Go at Fragpendium, obviously his thing, because that's his handle. He said, nobody that's written Lobo recently has understood or knows anything about the character. They just throw him into stuff. Yeah. I.e., when you want someone in Marvel to come and beat up the big bad, you call him the Hulk, then the Hulk gets beat up because he's the yardstick for strength. But he's always getting beat up because someone always has to beat him up. So when Lobo comes into play now, the continuity is never right. No one ever likens back to stuff that happened. Joshua Williams tried, but ended up rewriting everything with one stroke. Miss Tribb is his sixth grade teacher, and she shows up as a general in this with no backup whatsoever. It's the same lady. And James said it. He's like, it didn't have to be her. It could have been anybody. So why are you giving the Lobo fans like, oh, it's Miss Tribb, but it's not. She wrote an unauthorized biography from Lobo, and that got her killed by him at the end of the first run. You also have this city, the shrunken city of Zarnians, but he killed everybody. So all of the history about Lobo, he just completely changed to match this because Brainiac needed his one hole was immortality, which I got a problem with because why wouldn't he have, like, he makes clones of himself, like he couldn't figure
Isn't he
out
already
immortality.
immortal?
Right. So they're like, we need that. But then you bring in all these Zarnians to make a mess. They all, by the way, have the same facial marks where I talked to Simon Bisley and a bunch of other people who drew. They're like, they're birthmarks. Mm-hmm. Every Zarnian has a different one, but they all showed up looking just a skinny version, a fat version, blah, blah, blah. Like they're all different. But why did you even need them? You didn't even need Zarnians, period. They didn't do anything besides cause a little bit of mess. And that's what it was. You also had Lobo break his only rule. His only rule is he's a man of his word. He teams up with Superman. General Chakotay's like, don't you want to join us? He's like, I always wanted a family. Dude, what? You killed your entire planet. Yeah. You don't want a family. That's never in continuity, period. So he broke that one rule. Luckily, he didn't say anything about people killing fish. There was no fish to kill. And then he's like, by the way, Superman, I'll join you again. I'm like, dude, what is going on? So they brought him in, but why? Yeah. He didn't do anything Lobo-esque besides it's Lobo. But that term hasn't had the same weight since 2000, 2001. It's not the same.
Couldn't that have been anybody?
It could have been anybody.
It could have been even a Green Lantern
race. Yeah. So you could have made a new race of just immortal people. Yeah. Why bring in all them? They didn't do anything. General Chakotay is supposed to be this badass, and he ends up not being anything. And as a matter of fact, when the Queen wipes them all out, Lobo, who's killed entire planets, who's killed entire cities, who's dropped like a nuclear fart on a place, goes, and I thought I was brutal. Dude, come on, man. What do you mean? You've done more than that. But people, new readers who are just like, oh, who's this Lobo guy? They've messed up his history so much that, like James says, and like I believed, no one's done him right because no one respects the beginnings of the character. They just throw him in. You need a badass, you're going to call it Lobo. He's already had the same fight with Superman in Superman versus Lobo, which also sucked as a Lobo book. They exchanged 2 blows. That was it. And Lobo was worried about his social media presence. Come on, man. Really? So there's no continuity from the... Now, it's very hard to do. You can't... Like, the Lobo from 99, 98, went and had sex with a whole bunch of women on a planet and basically effed himself into being tired, so we had to leave. That should live over here. You can't have... If you're going to do Lobo in the current DC continuity, he has to be the one that Williams made because he is so far out of whack that he only lived in books like Legion, books like Rebels. He'd make these like jump ins, but just for that reason, because he would just decimate. Dude, he flicked the guy twice. He flicked them and blew off their entire head. That's the Lobo that we want to see. Even when he ended up in JLA for like, I don't know, a couple issues when Batman put a bomb in his head. Like, come on, really? But it's like, no one ever wants to follow the continuity. They change stuff, but instead of changing it completely, they're like, oh no, there was extra Zarnians laying around. Wait, what? Why? You even had the problem with Superman. It's the last Kryptonian, except that this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy. They did the same thing. At least Crush is half human, half Zarnian, and they still have no background for the mom and stuff like that. Like she was raised by 2 drug dealers. But at least that, and they even had a problem. But now all of a sudden he's like, I always wanted to be part of a family. No, you didn't. Yeah. Like, never did you. You killed your whole planet as a gag with a science project. You hated all those people. Like, changing the entire thing. Why? Like, you don't have to tell why they're immortal. In Lobo issue 1, it says that, like, everyone says, well, Lobo's immortal because he got kicked out of heaven and hell. It's not. If you look at the original run, one of the first editor's notes are, Zarnians lived in such a utopia, they get to choose when to die. They're essentially immortal anyway. And then again, that was a slight change when he got kicked out of heaven and hell when the books got like totally graphic. But you don't need that. You don't need any of that. You also didn't need to change any of that stuff. Also, they didn't even fight. They got to a mini slugfest. Lobo's like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. I love you. I love you. And in the end, they fist bump.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That's it? So I had problems with it. James had problems with it. And again, James isn't even a mean guy. He was like, I just don't like how he's used now for Lobo fans. But like you said, there's not enough hardcore Lobo fans that live like in the late 90s that want to see him and stuff. He went from Legion to Rebels to JLI. He was all over the place.
He was the only reason I know Lobo is from the Superman animated series.
Yeah.
Like those episodes. And then anytime he showed up a few times in the 90s comics that I read, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I never read the Giffen. I think it was Keith Giffen stuff. Lobo was always, no offense, just a side villain that showed up and seemingly as strong as Superman.
He is.
I get where you're coming from, particularly with
I'm sorry I took over like the first 20 minutes.
No,
that's all right. No. Listen, I appreciate the passion. I mean, here's the thing. I have been in situations, and I think everyone listening to this has been in situations. I mean, this audience probably mostly with Superman, but whether Superman or another character, we've been in situations where we don't feel like our favorite character has been presented the way that we think is accurate or correct or whatnot. So,
or they've been rebooted.
Sure. Yeah, so we've all been down that road. So even if we don't share the passion for Lobo specifically, I think we all have something we can kind of identify with.
I think
in terms of what you're saying.
Angrier more though, because there's more consistency, obviously, with someone like a Superman or a Batman.
Right.
You change them, like remember the Lightning era? Like you change that, and people go bonkers crazy town. There's no cry like that for Lobo, and if there is, it's like his niche group, and people don't care.
I think what's frustrating for me is I've always liked the Lobo character, so I wasn't upset he was there. But I even wrote down, like, under my issue 2.5, I went, is that Zarnian history?
Yeah.
Like I don't know enough. So then my brain's going, well, maybe they're going to say this is.
Right.
So now the hard part is for Lobo fans is that you know the history. For us, we're going to be kind of going, well, I guess this is it now. Yeah. And then you base it from there. And I really dug the splash page of all the Zarnians and Brainiac drones coming down. I'm like, this is going to be dope. And it was really cool. And it wasn't.
It was a mess.
And then it built up to, we're going to use them as food. And I went, did they just off that awesome general that if you don't know anything about Lobo, it's like, this guy's cool.
Gonna kick ass.
And I thought, he's going to be around for a while. Nope. He was
played
fish
out.
food.
Played out.
And I wrote, why? Clearly there's the family theme that is going through this arc. And you hit it with Superman's family, you hit it with Brainiac's family, you have to do it with Lobo. Whoever character you put in that slot,
right?
You have to figure out, okay, how do we make this family? Okay, Brainiac's character steals cities. Let's just pretend he stole a Zarnian city.
Right.
He's got Kolu now. Oh, his wife and son are alive. It's like, I see what he's doing. So it made sense to me. I didn't like it, but it made sense.
Or take the one family member has and shrink her. You had Crush. She was running around with Power Girl.
Yeah.
Take her. And he's like, oh, I don't like family, but I got to take this one. Like, at least that. Yeah. You didn't need a whole other city. Like, at all. You didn't need them. Right. Bring another immortal race in, keep your Lobo, do whatever. But it just doesn't seem like a lot of respect was given to the actual history that people like Geffen and Bisley and like everybody else has touched on this thing. You just went, we're not going to do that. What do you mean?
Or Brainiac's history, for that matter, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Yes. As I was reading it, this revelation that Brainiac had bottled this city, Zarnia.
Yes.
I knew that again, would be fodder for discussion here because I know it runs counter to established Zarnian lore. This cuts both ways, I suppose, because as I was reading it, you get to the end and all of those Zarnians are now off the board. So on the one hand, it's like, okay, we introduced this, but now it's taken off the board. But I take it you have an issue not only that it was done in the first place, but the way that it was resolved. The fact that all of these Zarnians are just devoured by the Brainiac Queen.
Also, again, the original, they didn't even have an army. They didn't need one. Yeah, it was a utopia.
Well, but so what that House of Brainiac special gives us is this new backstory and this revised history that with immortality, you essentially had these different factions. There were those who just lived in peace, but then others who just gave in to their more debased tendencies.
Well, I see it as the version.
There was none of them.
But you know what's interesting? Let's look at it through this lens. Look at the versions of Krypton. Okay, so like there's this version of Krypton that is very soulless, science-based.
Right.
And then there's a little more emotion-based. So unless they're going to go with that and say, like, well, okay, it's different.
Right.
We're going to try a new origin.
Right. And that's the thing. It's
But
been
again,
the
say it.
same one.
Say it.
Yeah, it's been the same one for 30-something years.
Correct.
So anybody who picked up a Lobo comic ever, even including the newer ones, when he comes back with the JLA, he's just like, it's always been, oh, well, that guy killed his whole race. That guy killed his whole race, except for this one crazy teacher who he happens to hate anyway. If you're going to do that, you need to give me then a one-off Lobo book.
Agreed.
For people who actually care.
And
you can't just throw it in because then everyone's going to be like, wait a minute. But the one thing that Williamson did, which I thought was really awesome, because he told the truth, and I want to hope that he threw this in on purpose. General Chakao looks at Lobo and he's like, from what I hear, you're kind of a joke. And I was like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
You are right. He is, because every time he's bought in, he's made to look like a chump, and then he goes away and everyone's still afraid of him, but they're not. They just use him now because they built him up to be this tremendous badass. And then, but they only bring him in so he can get chumped out, and they can be like, well, we beat Lobo, but now it doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. And that's the biggest problem.
That line was great where he's like, I've heard stories about you, and sometimes you're a badass and sometimes you're a joke.
Yep.
Again, I don't want to make it seem like this is the hill I'm going to die on and that I loved this Lobo side of it. To be honest, it was probably it probably was the least interesting aspect, because I was far more dialed into the Superman and Lex and even Brainiac side of all of this.
It was just the least interesting aspect, period.
Yeah.
But
it was,
for purposes of our conversation, and again, just to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, like with the history aspect of it, like I get what you're saying, that this new history we're shown for Zarnia, it does not line up with what had been established. Right. But Williamson does leave Zarnia in a place that does line up, right? Because it's this idea that there was this faction, they were concentrated in this city, this warmongering faction, and that's the city that Brainiac
turned on everybody, and then turned on everybody else.
And then he tried to I guess do what he normally does with all of these planets, and this is feeding into kind of that hole in his knowledge. What really kind of sets off the dominoes here, and I'm glad that we circled to this moment because it is really critical, as the city is under attack, there's a father carrying his two children in the midst of all of this. And this is what does not compute for Brainiac, of like, it's pointless. Why would this person be doing it?
Yep.
But anyway, and then he abandons his attempted, destruction of the planet. So at that point, you're then left with the Zarnia that and that's been firmly established, right?
Right.
Where then Lobo comes along and wipes everybody out.
Well, he did it in grade school, so there was nothing.
Right. Yeah.
He killed that planet as like a sixth grade science project.
But is that not what is established here? I mean, like that. Does
No, because in this one,
here.
Trib is a general. She's not even a teacher.
Right.
No.
So is the planet gone? Yeah.
And she negotiates it with Brainiac.
Yeah, and then he turns on her anyway.
Yeah, right.
But
isn't that all before Lobo? That's before Lobo, no?
I don't think so. Especially because Trib was never a general. So there's no way to tell when it is.
Right.
Because in continuity, that was never the case.
We're really creating a new origin. That's
what was created in that scene was created in that moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my assumption was, that look into Zarnia's past that we get in that House of Brainiac special was like all pre-Lobo. Like you had this warmongering faction. That's what's taken off the board.
Yeah.
You're left with this peaceful society that Lobo is then born into, and then he wipes everybody out.
Well, because in that first run, there's never been war, ever. Zarnia has always been it says in the book,
peaceful,
perfect utopia.
Right.
They have no army, they have no weapons, they have no nothing. They live in perfect peace until Lobo shows up.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess that becomes a thing whenever we talk about retcons, retroactive continuity. Something's added that was not part of the original story, not originally intended. Right. I mean, does it work? Does it have value? Does it add something to the story? I think in an instance like this,
I think it takes away more than it adds.
Fair enough. Look, I don't know that Lobo would have been included. Like, again, I know we're speculating. Maybe Williamson wanted to do this or that, but let's assume this is what he wanted to do. I think it's safe to say if he couldn't have had this lost city of Zarnians, this house of Lobos to go along with the House of El and the House of Brainiac, there probably would have been no Lobo in this story. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean you have to say, okay, great, well, then I'm glad we have this.
Right.
So you might be in the camp, like, would you have just preferred, because again, I think, I don't know that the option is like,
I would have preferred not to have any Zarnians or Lobo.
Oh, interesting.
Because that's what I understand.
Or do the blood thing where he wasn't poisoned by Grill Doc so many years ago, and you use him to make all the extra ones that he can't control, but they're all just like him, at least that would make more sense. I don't think you needed him at all. I think they threw him in because they're going to do something with him afterwards.
Agreed. I think that's coming down the pike.
But so every Lobo story you read in the 90s they are so out of control that you couldn't put him in any other DC book outside of a Legion, or he eventually makes, like, he shows up in the Teen Titans one time because Crush is there, and he makes a problem for everybody. He's better if you give him his own series. You make it, because there was a run that went like 50.
Yeah.
You give him this many books. It happens on a planet far away, so you can make it gratuitously violent and completely out of control. As soon as you start having him interact with other people, you have to bring that down.
Yeah, there's probably sacrifice that then is required in this. Like, and if that ends up undoing the core aspects that you find intriguing about the character.
He gets paid by the Easter Bunny to kill Santa Claus. That lives over here.
Yeah.
Like, he might as well live in a multiverse all by himself. And when he does come over... Yeah. It's different, but if you bring him in and all of a sudden he's taking orders from Batman to someone with the background, it doesn't make any sense. And it happened here.
Yep. Well, on that note,
same thing.
I don't know how you felt about this moment, but when an enraged Superman tracks down Lobo, and Lobo thinks they're going to tussle a little bit, and Superman just physically dominates him instantly. That to me...
I wrote this.
I'm nervous to even say this, but that moment... ranked because he's Superman. It's like battles only go as long as they do because he's not using his full force.
Unless it's with Lobo, which is in his continuity.
Correct.
He is the only person, at least that
can take it.
Has always been the only person that can go blow for blow with Superman, even with Superman's extra powers.
So wait, hang on. So you're saying that in established Lobo lore, Superman's never holding back. Right, like he always can let it go.
I think
with Lobo.
A long time ago he
so
realized.
So this moment probably then didn't work for you because the implication here is that he's not holding back.
Because one of Lobo's powers is he can instantly tell what your weaknesses are and can feed off them. So it's kind of like my problem with, like, he shows up because he's paid to go after Superman in the comic and cartoon that we watched. Right? He didn't come with kryptonite. Like, you're the world, you're the galaxy. He can smell you from galaxies away. One of his power sets is he can regenerate and he knows all of your weaknesses. He didn't come with the one thing that kills you. Like, that's what I'm saying. You can't give him all of these things and make it, it's written in every piece of lore that his power set is strength-wise is exactly like Superman.
Which sucks because it contradicts like what they wrote in the past and in the future.
Right.
We reference the television series Smallville a lot around here, and there's one Smallville rewatch podcast that's always at the top of my queue. Always Hold On to Smallville, hosted by our pal, Zach Moore. Zach and his guests bring tremendous insight, passion, and humor as they discuss each and every episode of the series that ushered in the renaissance of superhero TV. Listen to Always Hold On to Smallville wherever you get podcasts, and keep an eye out for the other shows under the Always Hold On to banner, including Arrow, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Superman and Lois, and Star Wars. Hop in the Supermobile and join us for the spin-off podcast Beyond Metropolis, available exclusively for members of my Patreon community. It's a monthly tour across the DC universe with the signature Digging for Kryptonite style applied to your other DC favorites. Additional Patreon rewards include advanced listens, sponsorships, and more. We offer regular monthly memberships, discounted annual plans, free trials, and a la carte purchases. Visit patreon.com/Anthony Desiato or click the link in the show notes for more. Thank you all. This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Bernie, do you have any rants? Anything that you wanna get off your chest?
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna need a second. Gosh, my biggest rant was, oh no, okay, I do have one.
Bernie's coming in hot, guys.
Yes, here it comes.
Now, okay, in the rare chance that Joshua Williamson listens to this, it'd be really cool if he did. I'm gonna preface this with, I love all of his work, and I've been really enjoying everything he's been doing.
Everything up to this point, Chained, Blue Earth. I liked all that stuff.
This is what he did is one of the things that bothers me the most about superhero comic book writers. You can tell when they don't know how to finish a great concept. House of Brainiac, the idea of it, even the family theme, even Lobo, I'll take all that. I can take the Sarnians. What I can't take is Connor just figuring out that he's powerful enough with one punch to end all of this.
Yeah.
And he's like, whoa, wait a second. I remember him telling me my telekinesis.
My tactile.
Kabam! And then, like, all of the ship, the entire planet, all of the city is crumbling. Electricity is going out. The intelligence is going down because of what Luthor did. But that one punch, that is sorry, Joshua. That is such a cheap exit.
This cop-out.
Yes. And so that's, for me, it was already going like downhill when they killed all the Zarnians. I was like, oh, no. And then that page happened. I went, oh. And it just ended up like happy, escape pod with the queen, and it was done. And I'm like, I just don't like that it cheapened it and it was just a setup for absolute power. And that's what made me realize what made me upset about it.
Oh. Dude, the first two issues.
He's clearly like, I don't know.
I had no problem.
Of course you didn't.
It's no problem. We're so pissed off. And he's like,
I thought this was great. I really enjoyed it. And I also,
it's quintessential super. It's like,
sorry, everybody. We're insane.
The role that Superman and the Super Family played was quintessential Superman because it's a Superman book. None other of the respect was given, except for Amanda Waller. None of the respect was given anywhere else.
And the Council of Light being the Brainiac family. Yeah. I was like, that was such a, I was so excited for something more. I was like, that?
Yeah, that did feel like a cop-out. I mean, that was established at the end of Dark Crisis, correct?
Yeah.
Which
I was like, oh, I wonder who this is going to be.
This Council of Light, and right out of the Young Justice animated series.
Yep.
And then, yes, we do get this reveal in the House of Brainiac special that the members of the Circle of Light are Brainiac.
Yeah, even Brainiac's upset about it.
Yeah. I will say.
You weren't even on the council. How did they do that?
There was an empty chair.
Yeah, that aspect did feel anticlimactic to me, and I do wonder if that was always the plan or if this was a pivot. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I get what you guys are saying as far as we get to the creation of the Brainiac Queen, and then of course that segues us over to Absolute Power. And I know there's that Ground Zero special where you see Amanda Waller
using Sanctuary.
Yes,
which is another misuse.
So
don't
get us started. Heroes in Crisis is not a good topic with me.
We talked about it. I liked it for the same. Well, that's yeah. I'll talk to you.
There's another episode
about that. Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's just me and you. So she uses Sanctuary, which the way it worked in Heroes in Crisis, you could have done a lot more damage. Yeah. She does it to she does it to have a 20-hour training session that turned into on her side 20 years,
right?
Which is
to try
clever,
and get the queen. But that's how you use that. You don't even need that mask then.
Yeah.
You could have did something completely different. Ollie's got the mask. He's like, she can't find it. Then he hands it to her because he plays for that side. It's just like, that's what you use. That mask, all the problems that mask caused that you kind of want to get away from because of the way people treated that series. You're going to bring it back for that?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. You could have just rewired her, couldn't you? You got all these intelligent people. She's basically a shell now. You could have just implanted it into her. You didn't need the mask for it.
Like, if I was Tom King, I'd be kind of pissed.
Yeah.
It was a weird use of that.
Fair. That was kind of an odd pull. But at the same time, yeah, I don't feel like House of Brainiac stands on its own. I don't look at it like I didn't come away from this being like, oh, that was pointless. It was just to set up Absolute Power. I mean, yes, it puts Brainiac Queen in place, but other than that, again, I still found House of Brainiac satisfying overall. I mean, as far as Lobo,
well, it's about action, everybody.
I expected this from DeVoe, but Bernie came in a lot hotter than I was expecting.
Yeah, I just don't like when they do cop-out moves.
Yeah.
It's always
it seemed like there was
me.
a lot of them too.
Yes.
I did like overall the story sans Zarnians and sans some of the weird stuff with like Luthor and theoretically the idea was cool. Brainiac's like, I want to pass all my to one big mega xenomorph queen of Brainiacs. Like I get it, right? But a lot of stuff seemed like, all right, well, we need to fill this, so we got to do this. We're going to put this in. We're going to put that in. That's why it all seemed like setup, because the story didn't have it just didn't seem like there was substance in the story besides what are we going to do with this queen and how we're going to get there.
It also didn't.
Besides building a new Kolu with all the rest of the shrunken cities on it. Like, oh, just put them all together. That's not going to be disastrous.
I didn't dislike that. I thought that was a cool way
That's what I mean.
to do that.
Knowing that it's going to be because even Lobo's like, that's where I'm going to head next.
And we're going to see that pop up again.
Yeah.
Again, hi, Joshua. I think there's really good ideas, but I think sometimes I don't understand. I don't feel the history of the character is done the right kind of honor. Like we don't follow the breadcrumbs through it. I didn't understand why we felt that we take away everything from Brainiac and what's left is emotions.
Yeah.
That's not right. Like, I don't feel that's right. It doesn't track with the character ever.
His intelligence went down
he had
to
a wife,
1%.
He had a wife and a kid way back. That form is way gone.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's an interesting side of all this. And I know we've been talking about the other characters, but Brainiac, right?
Yeah.
House of Brainiac. This notion throughout that there's a gap in his knowledge. And throughout the rest of the story, I think all of the other characters identify this kind of connection that Brainiac has not experienced, this love, this familial connection. And again, you see that in terms of what Lex displays towards Lena, unlikely though it is, but he does. And certainly among the Superman family. At one point, Lex's explanation for Brainiac's motivation is that he's denying what he's missing. And so his mind is sort of plugging that hole with this creature, the Brainiac, the Brainiac Queen. There's that. But then we do also get, and you were getting at this before, Justin, about this immortality business, this realization that Brainiac has that everything eventually dies.
Right.
And so he needs to create something new to kind of pass this on to.
but has he ever died?
That's
the thing. We've seen explosions like this. Sorry. But like, when have we ever seen him die? He's always come back.
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of go back to Lex's explanation, and I could be totally misreading this, and maybe, by the way, I do still remain convinced that someone at DC listens to this podcast. I mean, the fact that we've gotten the Lex and Clark dynamic where Lex knows the secret, the fact that Lena's been talking about this stuff for
we
years.
talk about this all the time.
just stealing your ideas.
So maybe. But,
there's some temp with a legal pad.
Hey guys, got a great idea. Dude, hand this over to Joshua.
But so I could be totally misreading this. This might not be the intention, but I do kind of go back to Lex's explanation for this. And I think ultimately what Brainiac is missing is that love, that family aspect. And that just doesn't compute. And so it manifests in terms of this creature. It manifests in terms of this business about immortality. But I think ultimately it is the family.
Well, yeah, but he didn't get any emotions till his intelligence dropped to 1%. So how deep was that want for family? You had to become, which I guess 1% for Brainiac is still
a lot.
But still like, so all you told me in story form was you don't appreciate family and connections until you're super dumb. Because if Brainiac's at 1%, it might be bigger than everybody else. But it took you, and it kept counting down at 1%. He's like, tear.
That's
like,
when
what?
it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when he's carrying the most. And the thing that I thought was very interesting was at the very, very, very end, how much we're paralleling Superman's, like the Brainiac Queen is basically baby Kal-El.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're seeing her escape from the explosion, and it's the same thing. But there was so much going on in those 2 pages to like wrap it up that there's so many threads of what Brainiac's saying, what Brainiac's doing, what this actually looks like, the parallel of that, the idea of saying this is not over, there's something coming. No matter, like at one point, you're as powerful as you are, Superman, you're not going to be able to save everybody. Like, okay, where's that going? Where is this going? I felt like we needed to get to what's next.
It's also shades of when Vril Dox had a kid, the baby in infant form was smarter than he was, so he made him the head of Legion, and then the kid turns bad. Yeah. So you also have this shell of something that eventually is going to go very, very wrong. So in my opinion, I'm like, why don't you just do that then? Like have Brainiac have a kid, and then it turns out to be stronger than him or something. You know what I'm saying? Like there was different, like I saw a lot of cool parallels from stories gone past 95, 96. But I was just like, there wasn't, I don't think, maybe Joshua Williams was.
Williamson.
Williamson, sorry. he's like,
if we're gonna insult somebody, we should definitely get his name right.
but you know what's weird? It's like maybe
DeVoe's so angry he can't even finish his name.
It's like,
He's
that's
just like,
William.
Williams.
I will not say the son.
that's because I know another Joshua Williams, and that's
Oh,
what's
there
throwing
you
me off. Maybe the 8 issue, because he had the Superman, he had the House of Brainiac, and he had action to do it. I don't think there was enough time to do it. Like, I think too much was
Because
put
what is
in.
it? 7 issues total, really, besides the tie-ins.
Realistically, I think so.
7, 7.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, and the tie-ins had nothing to do with the main story.
Yeah, right. The Green Lantern ones, like we said, it was the backup with Guy Gardner transporting this Zarnian, who he initially thinks is Lobo. Yeah. And the Power Girl issues was about Power Girl.
Crush and her girl gang of bikers.
Right. Brainiac, the problem I have with this is it's clear they are wanting to evolve Brainiac into something more. But there's 2 things. One, we haven't yet figured out, or we haven't been told yet, exactly the purpose and what the Brainiac Queen will be doing and how that's an evolution. We've had a little bit. Secondly, I don't understand how it seems like the addition of family was evolving Brainiac. But if you look at, again, the past and the history, emotion makes you weak. Emotion is not factual. Emotion is not data. Emotion is, it can actually make you weak. That means family makes you weak. That means love makes you weak. So like, I don't like that we've added that into an evolution when really based on the characters, a de-evolution. And I also get thrown by, did you guys get kind of weird aliens like James Cameron vibes when we first saw the Brainiac Queen?
Oh yeah.
Like there's a very clear, like,
That's why I called her a xenomorph.
Yeah.
Because that's what she
the
is.
mouth and just the way those wings are hanging out there. But then the power goes and then she's like
little,
Fritz Lang, Metropolis, weak little robot. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, what does this mean? And she already just ate a ton of Zarnians. So what's going on?
Yeah. I will say the one aspect of this, and it's more kind of mechanical in terms of the plot, but the one thing that didn't really totally work for me was in terms of collecting all of these powered beings to power her up and then literally feed/fuel her when she consumes the Zarnians. I felt like I would have preferred if there were some other purpose for collecting all of these people as opposed the siphoning of their powers and then the devouring of them for their
juvenile.
energy.
That seemed very easy.
Yeah. It seemed very basic for a Brainiac plot. So that was the one aspect of this where I was like, I feel like we could have maybe juiced this up like somehow.
If he had for me, the confusion was the common complaint that Brainiac keeps saying is, I have a hole in my knowledge. So where's that knowledge? So like, shouldn't he be absorbing knowledge, absorbing data? Like, what do I not know?
Well, so that was the whole thing though. But they brought this up throughout the story with Lex in particular, where for Brainiac, knowledge is power. Right. But he sees in Lex this quest for power, and then this realization that, well, if knowledge is power, then power is knowledge. So collecting the power will lead him to this knowledge. I don't disagree. I think ultimately what Brainiac actually wants is a little bit nebulous, because I think ultimately what he wants is not what he is saying in terms of this. Because again, I think he's denying what the truth of that gap is, and it's manifesting in terms of, I need to create this thing.
Then I wish they would have showed us that, because for all the stuff that he's done, a 12th level intelligence can't figure out immortality. Like, does that seem like low hanging fruit to someone like him? For all the stuff that he's done, he can't figure out immortality? Like, it just seems like that'd be an easy, like, I know it sounds weird. It sounds like an easy problem for Brainiac.
Well, but that's what, and again, and not to belabor the point, I might just be misreading this, but I don't know that the talk of the immortality is really what it is, even though that's what he says at the end, because it's like, he's created this hive of Brainiacs. And
it's a family thing, because he even mentions that when they all come out and they're like, you're going to pay for what you did. And he has that little breakdown moment.
By the way,
I wish that like we would have known that that's what it was, instead of like, if we're the audience and it's kind of like dramatic irony, right? We thought it was immortality the whole time too. Why couldn't we get one scene of him being like, I know I'm talking about immortality, but that's just to feed the queen. What I really want is this. Like, at least don't give it to us at the end, because then when it's done, it kind of seems sloppy. And we're like, wouldn't you just throw that in because you didn't know where to go with it? Because otherwise you leave people like us going, why is he wanting immortality? Isn't he kind of immortal as it is? So I just feel like if the characters thought it was immortality, but the audience didn't, it would have kind of connected things a little bit better.
I try to always read arcs like this, especially when people are seeing DC content coming out more animated, live action stuff coming up. I'm trying to read arcs not just from Bernie's read like every comic from this time. I know all these things, but what if you're new?
Yeah.
What if House of Brainiac is the first property you're picking up to read? Like, are they doing a good enough job, even in a little way, to make sure we're clear on who Lobo is, who Brainiac is, who Lena is? You know, we can figure out Superman and Lois. It's pretty easy. Right. But like, these are big characters that are being talked about and used a lot. Did we do a good enough job in the front end? There probably should have been an issue 0 if they're going to go that with something like this.
Yeah,
I agreed with that the first time you said it, where it's like, if you're reintroducing these characters, right, for any reason, are you doing it justice?
Yeah,
because you said that, you know, even with someone like Lobo, like, oh, he's a man of his word, he's the most dangerous bounty hunter. You didn't see any of that. You also, he's the last one, but he's not the last one. Like, all you did was confuse new people. So if you wanted new people to come in and they go to look back at the other stuff and be like, what the hell is this? This isn't what I just read. Like, at least keep some consistency outside of his teacher also happening to be a general.
Yes. We've created an easy DC loophole that they really should use more because the multiverses are back. So like they even bring up how they plucked Waller out of, he plucked Waller out of this Earth and brought her back. Why couldn't we say that the Zarnians are from a different universe?
Easy fix.
Why couldn't we say that, you know, Kulu is from this? It doesn't exist in our universe.
Yeah.
So I grabbed it from this one.
Also, then all the people that said that's Lobo just bald, it could have been.
Okay, guess what?
From a different
It's not the universe we know. They got wiped out. It's from Earth 70,000 or whatever. You know.
It's that, especially when all the clone multiverse Brainiacs are like on this council. Like, you have it right there, man. You could have just said it was like he went to these different places to do it. It didn't have to be here because here didn't make a lot of sense if you're looking at any history storyline of the character.
Yeah, well, not for anything, right? We did all those episodes on the crisis events, and like DC went to great pains to bring back everything and have it at their disposal. So yes, that could have been a means. I did like the Brainiac Hive, though, the fact that we have all of these different incarnations of Brainiac together. I mean, they even had the animated really series version in the background.
That's why I know. Yeah. That's why I thought it was called House of Brainiac. That's what I thought.
It was going somewhere completely different.
Agreed. And I saw like, oh, he's using, because there's something going on, he needs to go and use every version of himself to solve this thing.
Something like that could have been cool. But yeah, I know. I don't disagree
we
with
do
that.
this all the time.
I honestly got
episode
afraid.
We're like, you know, would have been right.
When I saw the House of Brainiac, before I knew anything about it, I'm like, I got scared as like a comic book fan because I was like, oh, he's going to cause a House of Brainiac? Right. This can be awesome. And that's not what it turned out to be. But like you said, we sit down and we're like, well, I would have did this. We get that, but what else are we going to do? Like, we don't do that and discuss it. We're not really discussing.
It's fun to talk about it. Like, because my brain was going, oh, it's like House of L.
Right.
What's House of Brainiac look like?
Yeah. Or House of M, even in the Marvel camp. Like, you have things that start with House of that all were kind of at least along the same. This one was just like, it's your problem with calling everything a crisis.
Yeah.
You brought that up before. If it's not this kind of event, it shouldn't have crisis in the title. The House of, I was like, this is going to get brutal. Honestly, the best part about it was Doomsday punching out of that thing at the end. I was like, oh, now I'm ready.
Yeah, that's not a bad point, though, as far as House of Brainiac. And they could have gone a different route. I mean, in the end, unlike the House of L or even the House of Lobos, it's a hive. Like, it's a Brainiac hive. They don't have individual autonomy, but that could have been interesting. Instead, it ends up being more of just kind of like a visual treat where you get to see all the different versions.
And he mentions that. He even says it. You're not just fighting me, you're fighting the House of Brainiac. Yeah. And I was like, boom.
I mean, it's a good payoff to that Jeff Johns story that reintroduced the classic version of Brainiac and this reveal that we know Johns loves about. And all the ones that you saw before, they were just probes. This is the real one. But it's like, now, okay, so the real one assembles all of these past ones. And so you see the Milton Fine version. You see Brainiac 13, Y2K.
Yeah.
Dude. Bringing it back.
Which you need to because of Lena.
Yes.
Like, you need to see the iteration of Brainiac to understand the iteration of Lena.
Yeah. So again, and we've talked about the whole, Lex and Lena side of all of this in the original Y2K storyline and then our Worlds at War, where Lex trades Lena to Brainiac 13 for the future tech. She's raised in the future, becomes this like avatar of Brainiac. And then at the conclusion of Our Worlds at War, which she and Brainiac are involved in, Superman is able to, again, rescue her, restore her to her original infant form, bring her to Lex, and then she's off the board. But then she shows up in Superman number 850, which was number 9 of this series during the Chained storyline. And you find out that Lena and Lex's mother, Letitia, have been living on this private island for years off the board.
And Lex just visits every now and then and looks at her and okay, walks away.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why we would wait till part 6 with that Lana and Lex sidebar, which put that as the add-on story of part 1.
Yeah.
And go like,
have that running at the
because then I care more. Like, this is happening. Lena's taken. It's like, oh, whoa. Like, what's Lex going to do? Lex has been on a path this way, which we haven't talked about this stuff yet. But Lex is on a path kind of towards goodness. What's going to happen with Lena? Or Lena. Oh, is it Lena or Lena? Is it Lena?
I mean, I always say Lena, and that's the Supergirl show.
Oh, yeah.
When Lena, but
because that all went great.
It's all right. Well,
hey, look, if we're going by the Rich Roney rule, we could say it however we want.
That's true.
And just call it into play.
Lene.
There you go. The more exotic, the better. That's what I found.
That's right.
Lene Luthor.
Which
Leather.
It's weird. I just brought up Vril Dox's 2's kid when he gets super smart. That's what happens with Lene. Is the same thing that they do with him. Eventually, they have to return him to an infant form, and they fit him with an intelligence zapper, so he doesn't. But it's like what happened is the same thing which I think if you look at it like a tribute to that, because it was a Brainiac at least story, that would have been cool. Yeah, because then you get the same thing kind of repeat. And besides, that was Legion 96. A lot of people aren't digging back that far.
So for the temp who's listening to DC, we're really not mad at what's been done here. We're just talking about like, oh, we thought this was going to be this.
Right.
It wasn't.
Which is
okay too.
Yeah. Which again, if you call it House of Brainiac, I get where it went, but I expect I didn't know what I expect. I didn't expect this though.
Yeah.
Like I expected something that was a little bit more world crushing. Instead, it was the setup for the world crushing event. Like this absolute power may as well be called Absolute Power Crisis, because that's what I feel like it's going to be. She's wiping out everybody. She's like, nope, we got to play, and it's been set up for months.
Well, and Waller's in charge. You can tell she's like she's at the top. Even the promo,
and she's been talking about it.
Amanda Waller's face.
She's shut down basically the entire Green Arrow. Like she's already put stuff into place that's going to get rid of all or hamper all the superpowers. Yeah. Period. That is, I think, where, and that's why I
like that idea.
Yeah,
and I'm curious what they're going to do.
And she should be the one to do it because she's always talking about it anyway. I just hope that that's a little bit bigger than that, right? Like if that makes sense. I hope that's a little bit more of a payoff than this. There was payoff parts in this. Like I love the Lena and Lex part. I thought that was really cool. I like the collective fight at the end. I even like the fist bump at the end.
I agree. I kind of did.
Last Sons.
I like that quite a bit, only because years ago, Lobo said the only way I'll ever shake Squarejaw's hand is if we beat each other bloody. And they didn't, and they fist bumped instead of shaking a hand. Now, I don't think Joshua Williamson knew about it, but I like that. And I did like that moment because he let Lobo be Lobo. He's like, I'm going to go over there and cause trouble. He's like, all right, I guess, all right, fine. That part I did like, and I even wrote a note that I did like that part.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I want to go back to Lex for a minute because, again, that's such a running thread in the first year's worth of Williamson's run on the title, where Lex is in prison. He has restored Superman's secret identity, and Lex is now among one of the only people who still knows that Clark is Superman. And they're working together. They have this tentative alliance. Lex has entrusted Superman with his company, renamed Supercorp. So now he has all of these resources at his disposal. And a big part of that first year on the title is Superman kind of coming to terms with that. And we get to the end of issue 12, and Superman finally kind of utilizes these resources at his disposal because there's a kryptonite cloud outside. He can't engage physically in the way that he does, but he's able to kind of tap into these people who are there. But throughout all of this, it's this running question of, well, has Lex actually changed? And in that anniversary issue 850, Lex had been shivved in prison, and so he's recuperating in the hospital. That's where Letitia and Lena come in. But Lois also comes in and she essentially says, like, all right, like, what's your plan? Like, when are you going to stab him in the back? Like, clearly that's what you're going to do. Like,
Like
you're
this has
Lex
happened
Luthor.
before.
She knows,
You said this. But even in the Action Comics, like the Paul Cornell stuff way back, like that, we see it.
There's that. And throughout all of these stories, and especially when we get to House of Brainiac, he's constantly being questioned.
Yes.
And at one point he even says, like, I wish people would stop asking me this.
Yeah.
But in that issue 850 is this great line to Lois where he's like, when you look into the abyss looks back. But I've often wondered, what if the abyss looked back and saw Superman?
Yeah.
And you see this great shot of the character. And it's like the effect that Superman can have on someone. Like I'm probably being gullible, and I'm sure Lex will have his turn at some point, but I believe in Lex in this. And I feel like whether it sticks or not, you got to tell this story at some point.
Yeah. You can't always be like, haha, I fooled you. Like, at least give him one opportunity, or else we all react like Lois. When are you going to do it? We know you're going to do it. When are you going to do it? The only way to throw people off is if he spends a lot of time not doing it.
And I don't think
he has to.
I don't think an episode has gone by where we haven't talked about the word redemption.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's always the concept of, like, if Superman's going to constantly believe in the best of us, people are going to change.
Yeah.
And how long does it take? Like,
says
maybe it
that
took
in the
80
run,
years.
doesn't he?
Maybe it took 90 years. Like,
Well, and that's a big part of those Williamson issues initially leading up to House of Brainiac, where Clark articulates to Lois, like, you know, I got a second chance.
Yes.
When I was sent to Earth and the Kents found me. And he's like, I feel like Lex is the one person I gave up on. Yeah. And so the fact that he's willing to entertain this, to see the best in Lex the way he sees the best in everyone.
And that's come up. That's been what they call retcon. But like, it's clear that they've known each other, or like that Lex and Clark knew each other.
So I've believed in Lex throughout all this. Yeah. And we also, leading up to House of Brainiac, got this whole backstory that he had an attempt at heroism when he first made his way to Metropolis against his earliest adversaries, Dr. Farm and Mr. Graft.
Yeah. Which they were creepy, man.
They were so creepy. And what I liked about this was, as you're reading it, you kind of feel like, oh, he's probably making this up. But it ends up being true to a point. Mm-hmm. But then you find out that he did make an alliance with them for kryptonite. Yeah. And then there's also this business that's not fully unpacked, but there is this revelation that Lex triggered these past enemies of his to attack now, to go after Lex, requiring the intervention of Superman to prepare Superman, because Lex was anticipating this assault from Brainiac. So again, Lex's motives and means are...
he's not planning.
Yeah.
But I think he has I think his motives are better than they've been.
Yes.
And that's the thing. He's still using his Lexiness to create these things.
Yeah, but what I loved in issue 12, when the Superman Revenge Squad is attacking and they've unleashed this kryptonite cloud in Metropolis that can kill humans and Kryptonians alike, and Letitia Luthor turns out to be involved with all of this, where Lex is out in the field fighting and Superman is the one inside giving the directions, and he's telling Lex what to do, and Lex is like, no, I have to stop my mother. And I love this moment. Clark is like, no, you listen to me now.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you need to, it was great.
Yep.
So the Lex piece of all this is fantastic. And then when you get into all of this business with him and Lena, right, as we get to the conclusion of House of Brainiac, you find out that Brainiac needs Lena. Essentially, all of this information is overloading his system, right? Yeah. He's maintaining his hive and the queen and the ship and Kolu and all this stuff. And so he needs to sort of use this vessel.
Yeah.
But that's where Lex intervenes, and they have this whole battle against Brainiac within the Brainiac mainframe.
That was really cool.
I like that too, yeah.
And they have all of these discussions, and you see Lena reliving her memories and whatnot, and kind of this question of like, why'd you like hide me away on this island? And he's like, I was protecting you and, to keep her safe from Brainiac, but also because he couldn't be that better man that Superman told him to be. At the end of our Worlds at War, that moment where he's like, we're small men in a large universe. Like, you got to get your act together here, essentially. And like Lex had her there until he could try to be that man. I mean, obviously there's been no setup for this over the decades, but to kind of fill that in. And I don't know, man, like the Lex piece of it really worked for me.
Go ahead, dude.
That was a bastardization version of when the Zarnians came and got Vril Dox, who's like down on his luck. He's like in bars. He doesn't have Legion anymore. And they bring him to Brainiac. Yeah. And he's like, what do you want? He's like, I'm disappointed. He's like, disappointed coming from you is rich.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like, and then you see that replayed with kind of with like Lex and Lena, and it's completely the opposite. Like, you see tenderness, you see love, you see like, yeah, I did make that mistake, but nothing's more important than the love of your family. Whereas Brainiac's like, I'm disappointed. He's like, really, dude? You're going to tell me you're disappointed in me? So you saw like the other version. I like that little background story. I thought that was really cool.
The last bit with Lex is that, he ultimately, essentially, he takes the bullet for Clark earlier in the story when he takes the blast meant for him and he gets taken to the ship. But then later at the end of the story, it's really Lena who would be the one who would go into Brainiac's mainframe and try to delete everything, but it could kill her. Lex steps in and does it for her, for his friends and family, as he says. And in that story as well, he talks about
Lena's
really
put
tried.
There,
yeah,
right.
Yes.
Lena's put there, and that was kind of for me. Did that give you like Superman 3 vibes?
Yeah.
You know when like Brainiac just pushes her into the wiring and it's like,
oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
Like, and all of a sudden I was like, that's like I wrote down that this is kind of scary. Like, it's
Dude,
isn't that messed up?
You just gave me like a child. That freaked me out.
When I was a kid, that scared the living crap out of me because like zzz, 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 and like that she's like in the mainframe.
Dude, I swear to God, I just felt like I de-aged. That freaked me out.
Right.
Like, because you saw it all connect, and it was in like that
and you
kind of bad early.
And you see Lena's tear.
Yeah.
And that's just like, okay, this is cool. Again, Williamson, I like a lot what you're doing. Like, but there's just so many cool little throwbacks and like, oh, this is neat. And Lex had to put on the helmet to go in to save her. But that was kind of messed up.
Helmet.
I love that helmet.
Yeah, that was cool. Creator and podcaster Perry Constantine, host of Superhero Cinephiles, has a special offer for listeners of this podcast. Visit percivalconstantine.com/DFK or click the link in the show notes. Fill out the form and then get 2 free novels and 1 free superhero short story. The novels are Vanguard, Heroes Forged, an Avengers-inspired team of superheroes, and Ronin Born, a cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic, fascist Japan. The short story is Omega Knights, Fire and Lightning, a Power Rangers-inspired prequel to an upcoming serial. Take advantage of this offer today, and be sure to catch Superhero Cinephiles on all major podcast platforms. Filmmakers and movie fans alike should be sure to attend these film festivals: Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, Hang On to Your Shorts in Asbury Park, Point Lookout on Long Island, and Round Reel in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Take it from an alum of 2 of them. Submission information for filmmakers, as well as details about the festivals, can be found at filmfreeway.com. Follow the festivals on social media for news about events, discounts, tickets, and more. Also, listen to the Hang On to Your Shorts and Cullen on Film podcasts, available via a shared universe network.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. I have a lot of notes. That
While you pull those up, we have some audience questions. So I put it out there on social media that I was going to have you 2 guys over, and on Facebook, very few responses, but on Twitter, we got a bunch. So I'm actually going to go through some of these questions now. Some of them we've touched on. Others will kind of help us button up our conversation here.
Cool.
So our pal Glenn Clark says, are Brainiac's memories inside Luthor's brain in that last page? Or the second to last page, right? Because we get to the end of House of Brainiac and Lex seemingly as a blank slate.
Yep.
Shades of the Smallville. Anyway, that's separate. But yeah, I mean, to Glenn's point, our Brainiac's memories inside. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Brainiac hid inside Lex, especially going back to animated series and other stories as well. So I could see something like that.
Izzy and Lena.
That's what I was going to go with.
Yeah, I'm sure he's in someone.
Again, he doesn't die.
Here's the only thing, though. I just don't want. I am a little nervous whenever we deal with Lex losing memories.
Yeah.
Again, going back to Smallville, so I'm a little nervous. I don't want. We know Lex will be back at some point, but I hope it's not a Lex who doesn't remember that Clark is Superman,
don't do that,
or that he's good.
That he's good. So, but we'll see. I will
Okay.
remain cautiously optimistic.
Wait, hold on, real quick. How long? Because we already talked about that Lex needs to stay good for a while now, or else. How long in your personal timelines does he need to be good, fight for Superman, maybe save the world, blah, 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 before something, it doesn't matter what happens, before then people go, oh, come on,
5
really?
years?
I'm going to say something that you're going to probably hate. I think it needs 5 years, and they need to kill the character and have him sacrifice himself for Superman.
Wow.
And then like Amanda Waller brings in.
And then Lena takes over.
It would almost, right? If he's going to be this good person.
Like, again, what is more redeeming than finally
dying for the guy
who
you always wanted to kill?
Correct.
Absolutely. I think 5 years is great.
another Smallville reference. One of my favorite episodes is from season 6, Nemesis. It's when Lex and Clark are trapped in the mines with the kryptonite.
That is one of my favorite episodes.
And this is their friendship has fallen apart at this
hard.
point. And at the end of that episode, Clark is talking to Martha, and he's like, I caught a glimpse of something down there I hadn't seen in years. My friend. Like, that friend is there. Like, Lex is really not capable of love, or at least he hasn't been, but maybe that could change. Maybe there is some true redemption.
Look what happened in this arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
he stepped in front of the beam.
That's right. If you do have new people jumping onto this,
Yeah.
and you do it for 5 years, they might know Lex Luthor is a bad guy, but they've never seen it.
Right.
Which means they're going to fall in love with this super Lex, and then when he goes back, now they're like, "Oh, I hate this, but I want to see where it goes." I think you need to put a big gap in time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the questions, but I wanted to ask that, especially because it's cool that you guys came up with the same answer. Yeah. Like, there needs to be a good, solid couple years.
Here's the thing. I agree with you, Bernie, because it's like when you say 5 years, it might sound like a long time, but in comic book time, it's really not.
It's a year, maybe.
So I think it's worth it. And I will say, let's say for argument's sake, he doesn't sacrifice himself, but he goes back to being evil at some point. It's like at a certain point, we'll have an evil Lex again. I think that's inevitable.
Well,
but if there's a reason for it, not like if it turns out to be like, oh, I was just fooling you all along. It's like, that will not work. But if there's something that accounts for it,
it can't be.
Go ahead.
It can't be a red herring again. He can't be this was all a setup. It can't be.
I don't think they would do. Honestly, I would be surprised.
DC Temp, listen. So here's what it should be.
He needs
either he dies for Superman, or Lena dies and Superman can't save her. And Lex can't own. He's like, why couldn't you save her?
Right. You saved
she
everyone
made
else.
me want to be good.
That DC temp. Write it down.
I like how you think it's just some lowly temp. I feel like there's someone a lot higher up who's listening.
Yeah, but if we start throwing out names of people that we know,
start an Instagram
I might upset
account.
somebody.
That's
called the
at
DC temp.
DC temp. It's gonna be me in like a little tie holding a pencil.
All right. So Glenn also asks, do you think Brainiac Queen is here to stay, or will she serve her purpose and absolute power and never be seen again? It's like, no, I feel like this is a character, once she's on the board, whether she remains an ongoing presence or not. I think, look, Lena's a perfect representation here. Even when you think a character is gone.
Yeah.
I want to, but what they can do, which I could see happening because they've done it, the Brainiac Queen, since she's still learning that Amanda Waller is her mom and cares, she just wants to see them all gone because Amanda Waller put in her head that they're all bad. I can see her turning good. You now have a good Queen Brainiac who's not as powerful because she's not eating or doing all the stuff that she has. And then she becomes a part of, I don't want to say it, becomes part of the super team, man. Like that's,
Well, I can go the other way and think Brainiac Queen stays around and something happens to Amanda Waller, and then Brainiac Queen absorbs Amanda to become part of her personality.
That'd be really good. And then it's like a fail-safe thing.
Correct.
Nice. Oh, nice. DC 10.
Yeah, time will tell on that. And then Glenn's final question, is that last page a tease for a return of Doomsday?
100%.
Sure as hell seems that way.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, we are recording this in July. People are going to hear this early August, after San Diego Comic-Con, after another round of DC solicits. I would venture to say by the time people hear this, we'll probably have a clearer sense of what DC's fall plans are for the Superman books. But given that tease...
Well, it said coming in October, right?
I think so.
On the bottom?
So given that, so I think right after Absolute Power and those tie-ins, I think we're going to get to whatever this is. So given the era that Williamson is clearly pulling from, given the fact that November is the anniversary of the death of Superman, given that tease on the end of that page of Doomsday punching his way through, and also going back, did you guys read that Action Comics Doomsday special a few months ago?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
With Doomsday in Hell?
Really good.
It's kind of messed up.
And this army of souls forming this barrier to keep him from busting through the gates of hell. And so that ends with him punching through. And then you get that follow-up here. So yes, it very much seems like we're headed towards another Doomsday story.
Also, right. But he's only been bought in for very specific things. Again, kind of like the Lex thing, he can't just come and fight Superman to get, like, it's got to be something bigger this time. But what bigger than Doomsday is Doomsday, right? Like, if he doesn't come back, he's got an amazing skill set.
Yeah.
He's incredible. He is he's the planet killer, man. That's what he does. But he can't just show up on Earth again. Like, it can't be like another, like Doomsday Part 2. Now he's in Coast City. Like, it does it, like, it has to be something bigger.
Oh, talk about a great reason for Lex to sacrifice himself.
Yeah. So
call, man.
That's another thing we'll keep an eye on. Then we have our pal Rick.
Love Rick.
We sure do. So Rick says, how great was it to see the payoff to the Lena storyline? Amazing.
It's really good.
Martin asks about why did they avoid having John Kent saying he was off with the Titans? I mean, as we've talked about, like the super family is rather large.
Yes.
And even with what we got, most of those other characters on Brainiac's ship, they don't get a ton of play. Lana, as Superwoman in particular, gets really next to nothing to do. I think had John been there, I probably would have taken away from Connor. I mean, we've talked about this. Those two occupy a very similar space.
I kind of would have liked to seen Steel.
Yeah.
I would have liked to seen him up there. I think he would have had a little more prowess than like Metallo. I mean, we didn't really even get anything out of him much, except for a Hank Henshaw.
Yeah,
reference.
they just had a whole bunch of people in bottles, but a lot of them got free.
They just
small.
needed their power.
All right, now we get some more just kind of fun questions here. Brian Dempsey asks, I hope you let the audience know who won the arm wrestling match between Justin and Bernie.
Bro,
You guys going to go at it after this?
do I get to use both arms?
I love Brian, dude. He's funny. He's funny, dude.
We also have another Brian who had a bunch of similar questions. Yeah. Who has more hair, Sweet Bernie or Justin?
Oh, take your head off, bro.
Well, me because of my face.
Oh, yeah.
Like beard-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we're doing hair total.
Yeah.
Total hair. What if I should have done this at the beginning. What if Bernie swore every 7 words and Justin didn't, kind of like trading places?
Oh, that's what we should have did.
I don't.
That's what we should have did.
I would be shocked. I couldn't really envision.
I used to swear a lot.
I think I heard you use one F-bomb on a show, and I was like, ooh, I got excited.
Don't forget, I grew up in New Jersey.
That's
I know. I do
especially
always
where
forget
you grew
that.
up. Like that
I
was
know.
Bergen. That's rough. Yeah,
The Midwest knocked it out of me.
Anything else about House of Brainiac that we didn't talk about that you guys want
We
to?
both go to our notes. 2 things. One is a positive about Williamson that I do think, like you said earlier with the 90s triangle vibe, I think he writes the crew well. Like, I think he has the tone of everybody in the super family down. So I don't have any complaints about that. It's one thing, and I don't know much about Sandoval's art. I really like his art. But if you go back, if you had to ask me if he did the art for the whole book, I would say I'm not sure. Like, there were some pages and angles that I was like, oh, I wouldn't expect the way you drew him this way to look this way at this angle. So, because I really, when I first was reading it, going, this has like harkens of like Jim Lee, Travis Charest, like it's really edgy vibe. But then it was throwing me off a little bit. So I don't know, maybe if there's one complaint, it was like artistic, like style continuity. But I really like what he does. I just wanted to look similar throughout the book.
I wonder if different inkers. I mean, I'd have to double check the credits, but I don't know offhand that it's the same.
Yeah. So maybe,
throughout.
And that's your truth. The colorist does affect things very often. So I don't know.
I also think that we didn't give enough love to Bibbo and Perry.
In the 2.5. Yeah.
It's just that dude always has gems, man. Where he's like, people are like neighborhoods, man. Some of them are good, some are bad.
Yep.
And in the whole speech, and like, let's talk about the political implications of what's going on now. When he's like, dude, aliens live in your neighborhood. They work at your cafes. Like, you have no problem with them serving you. Yeah. Now you want them all out. Like, it was so good. Like, I have more notes just on that chapter 2 with them too, just about like the beauty of the story than most of the other House of Brainiac issues.
Yeah.
Just because they packed so much in a 1/3. And again, the guy who fights for the other side comes in at the end. He's like, is this the campaign thing? He's like, cool? It depends.
Yeah.
Do you want a bar? Or do you want that? And like, you have that coming together. I was like, listen, it didn't even have, the only thing was that it plays into absolute power because the guy's like, we don't need superheroes anymore.
Yeah.
All they do is cause a problem, especially these aliens. We're seeing that in the Blue Beetle continuity too. Yeah. And out of everyone, he changed one person's mind, but then he comes in. It was beautiful, dude. Like, I love that standalone. It was so good.
Williamson also had a Superman annual a while back.
Yep.
And you really got a feel for his Metropolis and that and the Daily Planet staff. And you have Steve Lombard, but also Lisa Lombard, his sister, who reports on tech, I want to say.
Yeah.
And you saw Ron Troop and Cat Grant.
I was so happy to see all of them.
And it was a great issue because you had Lois switching their assignments.
Yeah.
Right. So not covering their usual beat and seeing what they could bring about. Once again, and this has come up so many times, but it makes you appreciate the amount of real estate that the Triangle era creators had, because you had 4 and then eventually 5 books. You had a weekly Superman story. Yep. You had the space for that. I look at the Williamson run, and I feel like a lot of this Metropolis world building, you see it in the annual, you see it in the House of Brainiac special. And well, is it everywhere though? I mean, I feel like it's in the regular, like
with
the regular
only 2
issues.
books, like 2 anchor books now.
You just don't have as like you just don't have.
It feels like more to me because of all those extras,
and that's what I think. That's why I think that's a good. It was a good solution.
Yeah, no, I think that works, and it's like that's what I just always want more of. But I love that Metropolis is feeling like a place the way that it used to, and
not just a battleground.
Well, and then seeing that ground level stuff in this one, it's Bibbo. He's like, 2 people in this bar drink milk. Me and Superman. You never know who you're gonna have the common with. I'm like, that's genius.
Yeah,
that's such a bit like but it's right on a bigger scale. Like everyone with a problem with any race, and like should have looked at that and been like, wait a minute. And he even says, he's like, I don't know why people want neighborhoods to stay the same. Why would you ever want that?
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, like he's spitting science all over here, man. And I love when it comes from him because he is like the everyman fan of what's going on. He's also rough. Lobo loves that guy. Like every time he comes, he makes sure to visit him because he has that kind of thing and he's not scared of anything. He's like, look, man, I run a bar. You want to drink milk? Drink milk. But there's only 2 people here that drink it, me and Superman. And he's an alien and I'm not. You never know you're going to. I was like, dude, that guy drops science. Who wrote that section? Who was it?
It was Mark Russell.
Mark Russell, which is amazing.
He did the space age stuff, man. It was so good.
I really want to see more of Perry's mayoral campaign. I want to see him as mayor. And I want to see this long building confrontation between Lois and Perry over these stories about Lex's heroism that have been buried, right? Because that's been a running thread in the books too. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that pay off as well. So,
and then in chapter 3, written by Joshua Williamson, Brainiac watches this and says that's one part of humanity he can never understand. Even in dire circumstances, they find a way to connect. I'm like, and again, with that knowledge, it's like, that's what he's looking for. It has nothing to do with the immortality, but I just feel like I wanted
he's
more.
Confused.
Yeah. Where he's like, wait a minute. How's this happening? All these people don't like, how is this over this? Because that doesn't compute for him because it's not logical. Dude, that one, I'm telling you, that one House of Brainiac special, I got more traction from and more of an appreciation for everything because of those stories, man. They were great.
My last question. Lois has her day off at the beginning of the story, celebrating an anniversary of some sort. They circle back to it at the end. We're never told what it is, though, why she takes off that specific day. Any theories?
Oh, wait a minute. We weren't told that?
No, they never explicitly say why that was the day.
But it was very important for her to get that day.
You think it's the day he came back?
Maybe, and that would make sense if we're heading into a doomsday return. Could be something like that.
And she wouldn't tell anybody that.
Because she can't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I like that. Because initially I was thinking like the day Superman first arrived, but it's like, I don't think that would be a day off.
It's the day he wasn't dead.
Or she's kind of gritty though. So it could just be like the first time he dug me down or, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, it could be something like the first time he came back, but she strikes me as the type of person to just do it for something like either a big reason like that or a nothing reason. She just doesn't want anyone to know. That's just her day. It seems like she would do something like that. I like yours better because it's more meaning, but I also like it'd be like first time, he I don't know, again, I can't get graphic.
It was a rainy night in July we learned that in Reign of the Supermen.
Yeah.
It's established lore.
Right.
And how dare they ever contradict that?
Listen, now you know how I feel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if they tell us the first time they banged was like in the winter, I'm going to lose it.
Kryptonite condoms.
Retcon that.
DC temp.
Well, this was an epic, rowdy discussion, and this was a lot of fun.
This is everything I expected it to be and more.
Yeah, dude.
I thank you both for making the trip, especially you, Bernie.
Oh, yeah, man.
Flying in from the Midwest. Not that you came just for this.
I did, actually. I told my family, I have to come at this time.
But you carved out the time, and Justin, I had a big drive, and you made it, and I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as well.
Is it okay? Can we plug a few? Is there anything you got coming up that we can plug?
I mean, I still do Not So Secret Dad's Business. That's fun. But I want to plug something I don't get paid for, but I do it all the time. Comics on Coffee makes delicious coffee. And I'm not saying that as a comic book fan. So Sean, oh my God, I was hoping I could get away with this. Sean from Fat Moose Comics, ladies and gentlemen. There's one. That's all he's getting. He in the shop, he had a bunch of bags of coffee.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, I drink coffee, but I'm like, I'm probably not going to let.
Oh, is that the one with the different characters on the coffee?
Let me tell you something. Even flavor, like Wonder Woman's is like coconut and pecan. Dude, I've tried all of them that I have right now. They're all delicious. I don't know how big the company they are. There's more on the website. They're really reasonably priced, considered like it's a bet. And for collectors, it's great because after you're done with it,
that's cool.
You like stuff it with like, napkins and you keep the thing.
Oh, nice.
But they're delicious, man. I plug them on the show all the time because it's genuinely good coffee.
Cool.
So that would be it, really.
Well, that's good. They should be a sponsor.
Oh, look at that. Brought to you by Comics on Coffee.
Yeah. What about you?
I was going to just plug the stores, man. Like I was able to see my buddy Mark Hammond today. He owns Comics in Harrison and in Skokie. I'm on the crew at Skokie.
Who had very choice words for you when I was.
I was sweet, effing Bernie.
Yeah.
But no, like we got big sales coming up and awesome guests and signings coming up. So check out the stores.
I was in today for the first time. I saw him on the video because he was in Anthony's documentary, which I'll also plug. Even though he's sitting right here, and I'm not just doing it for him. I went in there. It's beautiful. Yeah. It is very big. He has if you go there, you got to give a good couple hours. There's so much
amazing back issue inventory.
Yeah, and he's about to do like a whole store reno, making new fixtures for everything. He's got more stuff that he can't even put out. Let me tell you something. That guy works. I went in there.
He's 7 days a week.
He apologized.
Sometimes. Yeah.
He's like, dude, I'm sorry. I wouldn't be more talkative. Dude, he was doing like 8 other things while I was there. I'm like, trust me, it's okay. I know you're running a business.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And of course, Fat Moose Comics and go see my friend Mike Zapsik. If you're down by Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, he runs a really dope shop now.
In Red Bank, I've been there. It's awesome.
I'd be annoyed at all of these plugs. However, you guys are top tier patrons, and so you can plug whatever you want. So it's fine. It's fine. I mean, people hear the
I was like, Anthony's like, just shut up.
If people hear the pre-recorded ads for Fat Moose and for I mean, I'm going to peel back the curtain here if you guys don't mind. I mean, you guys are the reason why we have those ads. So people got to hear them live from you guys this time, which is cool.
And I have to do it. James Azrael's Fragpendium.
That's cool.
He did it. DC didn't have a problem with it. It is, and I know they just came out with the first collection of the Lobo stories. This is his history, man. We're talking every bit of change, all the new stuff, all his powers, how they changed everything. It is beautiful, and it was a labor of love. He did it with one other guy of all the collection stuff that he had. He does interviews with Doug Mankey. He did interviews with Geffen, like everybody. He's got quotes in it. It is awesome. It's kickstarted. He has some. There's 2 copies of Fat Moose that you can get. Also, if you want to reach him directly, it's at Fragpendium on Instagram. He's a great dude. And for someone that put this much time and effort into something, you got to check it out. And if you just found Lobo from this, you definitely want it. You definitely want it. He's a good dude.
And we never, we always do podcasts and episodes. We never just say thanks. So, thanks for having us both on, man. This is always fun.
Dude, the fact that I'm in your house right now, staring at your bare feet, I got to admit, is a highlight of my day.
That's pretty hot, right?
It is, because that's comfortability. I always wanted to come here and just do one live. The last one I did live with you was in 2017. Yeah. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to be in this setting with you two. This was the highlight of my summer so far. It really is cool.
I was really, I love coming out the East Coast, but this was I was so excited.
Yeah, no, I've really been looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint. So thank you guys.
Dude, I saw Bernie walking down and yelled at him like I've seen in my entire life. And then your neighbor came out to get pizza, and I didn't want to curse in front of her because she already looked at me weird. Yeah, but thank you, dude. As always, it's like hanging out in a comic book shop, man.
Yeah, man.
This was amazing.
Yeah, right on. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, audience. Make sure you come back next week as our Superboy coverage resumes. Don't miss it. Until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. Be sure to check out our sister podcast series, Another Exciting Episode in the Adventures of Superman, an episode-by-episode breakdown of the classic George Reeves television show, available wherever you get podcasts. Please join us on social media, become a patron, and subscribe, rate, and review today. Links are in the show notes. Thank you all.